Hello, welcome to our Blade Runner 2049 Post-mortem, aka spoiler cast. I don't know if it was made apparent in the recording, but we are spoiling the hell out of this film. If you're not interested in seeing the film, stick around. I think there's a lot we could say that'll make things really interesting when it comes to thinking about this film. So I guess we can start off by talking about our general thoughts, opinions, feelings about this gargantuan 2 hour 40 plus minute movie. What did you guys think of it so far? Maybe start off with Colin.
Yeah, so man, this movie, man. This is a movie that I have been thinking about ever since I left the theater last week. This movie, just everything about this movie left an impression on me. Every scene, the feeling, the vibe, the music, the story. I don't know. It was. I mean, and I know I'm just kind of gushing here, but this movie was really, really anticipated for me, and it delivered on and everything I could have wanted out of a sequel to the original Blade Runner. I mean, Ryan Gosling was an amazing pick for the lead. I even thought Jared Leto's character was really good. I know, was it you, Jack, that doesn't like Jared Leto all that much?
I hate Jared Leto.
I don't think he's the only
Jared
one
Leto.
in the world who's like that.
And it's not just
he's
his
not.
films either. I think of him primarily as a terrible TV actor / terrible musician. And so this is just another thing he's terrible at. But go ahead. I'll get to that later.
I mean, I thought I really did actually like Jared Leto's character in Blade Runner. I did like Neander Wallace quite a bit. I thought the scenes with him, and you know what, there wasn't too many scenes with him in it, to be fair, even if you don't like him. Like, you know, he didn't get a crazy amount of screen time. But like the scenes with him in it, particularly the last scene, him with Harrison Ford, you know, where they talk about, they throw back a reference to the first film and talk about Harrison Ford or Deckard's relationship with Rachel, and how it could all be like the big revelatory moment where they're like, could it all have all been set up by Tyrell? Was this his plan all along? And that shit, like, I don't know. I thought Jared Leto's character was just awesome in that regard. Just being that, you know, I'm basically playing God, and he reflected that, I thought.
I think technically speaking, that part of the film was pretty cool, how they like brought in Rachel, but like as she CG
was amazing though. Yeah, I thought that was awesome. I was actually like, that was the first time, because like, you know, it was right before she like walked into the light, and so you could clearly see her character. I was like, I don't know, like this is you know, because you knew it was going to be CG, so I was like, how are they going to do this? And then they did it, and it happened, and I was like, okay, this is a lot more believable than I thought it would be. It was like almost beyond Uncanny Valley for me. Like, I was kind of shocked with how well it was done. It was actually done better than Princess Leia was in, what was it, Episode 7? Yeah. Or no, it was Rogue One, I'm sorry. But that's just my opinion. I thought they did that very well. But yeah, man, this whole movie blew me away. And I'll let you guys give your initial thoughts. But
so I liked it more than the OG Blade Runner, because, you know, last week when we talked about it, I was very like meh about the OG film. This one, yeah, I think is more interesting for the most part. I still feel like there are moments where it takes for fucking ever to explain any sort of story beat. But for the most part, the pacing is a lot faster, and it feels a lot less like I'm staring at a screen for no reason.
Dude, it's funny that you're saying pacing's faster in an almost 3 fucking hour long movie.
Well, yeah, but I felt like more happened in it than in the 2 hour long final cut that I saw, which I know is a really weird thing to say, but I just felt like there were more significant and important twists and turns, you know, like the whole, is Ryan Gosling's character like a baby, like a baby replicant,
yeah,
like birthed by the miracle of, you know, Tyrell or whatever, or was he not? And, you know, like there were a lot of twists and turns to the story that I think kept it interesting, whereas with Deckard it was just like he's hunting 6 dudes and he finds more clues. Well, whatever.
4.
See, it's like he's hunting people. He finds clues. He hunts them, and then it turns into a horror movie for the last 20 minutes. Like I felt like the beginning, the first Blade Runner just didn't have as much going on as 2049 is throwing at you, which I appreciate a lot.
Having a more clear-cut experience, more tight story is what you mean. You appreciate that. Yeah, it's much. Yeah. It's very simple. Oh, go ahead.
No, yeah, I was just gonna say I can agree on that level. It's definitely like a way more grand in scope type of story than the first Blade Runner. Because like you said, the first Blade Runner is like, okay, it's this guy called a Blade Runner is hunting these 4 androids that are delinquent androids, and they're basically there illegally, so he's got to hunt them down and kill them. But it's what he discovers about himself and about the way these creatures live and questioning his own humanity. That's it's the themes more so than the story itself.
Yeah, fair
I guess.
With 2049, I feel like the themes were a little more like in your face. Like they made a lot of it like very, very obvious. They didn't try to sugarcoat or make anything super, super subtle. So I mean, I don't know. Call me a stupid guy, but I kind of appreciate that a lot more than like just the emptiness that was the first movie. Jack, you've been a little quiet. Do you want to hop in?
Just trying to be a good podcast mate and not interrupt too much. But I think that this movie was really awesome for 2/3 for a lot of the reasons you guys outlined. And I think the story goes somewhere that I don't know if I can exactly follow. So I cannot understate or overstate enough how good the special effects are in this film. It is absolutely a visual tour de force. It lives up to and exceeded what my expectations were for a modern Blade Runner. The music by Hans Zimmer, top of his game again. You know what you're going to get with Hans Zimmer every film he does. It's awesome. It fits everything.
Seeing this movie in IMAX, man, I tell you what, this was an experience.
Some of the shots were so gorgeous and well thought out and crafted. Like I literally was like dropping my jaw like, oh my gosh, this is gorgeous. Like the scene where he goes to investigate, the bones or whatever, find the DNA or you know what I mean? And that guy in the little office with that kind of yellow cutout of the concrete wall. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? It goes around the corner. Yeah. Like that shot was awesome. And there's no movies I can think of. One movie that kind of comes to mind a little bit is The Cell with Jennifer Lopez. I don't know if you guys ever saw that movie, but has some real weird, it has to do with dreams and stuff, but it has some real weird avant-garde kind of cinematography like that. It sort of reminds me a little bit of that, but this is so much better and dialed up to 11 on the visuals. The concepts, just the concepts with his kind of pseudo girlfriend, like the holograph. I can't remember her name. Do you guys remember her name?
Hologram. Joy.
Yeah. I thought her performance was very believable. The first scene where he buys the upgrade for her and they go outside for the first time.
Dude,
it's so cool. It the movie is very, very slow, and it does definitely like sit there and let you really, take in what's happening, and it really kind of appreciates the gravity of what's going on. And I don't know. I felt like I was in really, really great hands for the majority of the film. There's a lot of praise I can hype on this, and let's talk about that. I mean, this movie got great reviews from Rotten Tomatoes, from most critics. It's very hard for movies. If you go on Metacritic, it's very hard for movies to get over a 50. Most movies do not get over 50. And even I've seen movies that get like a 40 or a 30, sometimes even a 20. I'm like, that's a good movie. I think it's not going to win any awards, but I had fun, but from a critical point of view, it's hard to get a consensus, and to have one rated this well, I couldn't agree more. I love the film.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Just to plug in a number, Rotten Tomatoes, it's sitting at 88%. Wow, 88%, which is like crazy.
Super high. So
that is very high. Yes.
Yeah. I thought that Ryan Gosling's performance was fantastic. Probably, controversial statement, probably the best performance I've ever seen him in a film, period. And I've seen a bunch of his films, sadly. Also, Harrison Ford easily the best Harrison Ford I have seen since, the 80s. Basically, I can't think of he really cared about this character, and his scenes are phenomenal. I even think Jared Leto was a interesting villain. I don't like Jared Leto that much, and if you're hoping to see a lot of him and hoping to see a lot of Harrison Ford in this film, not really. They don't get a lot of screen time. It's mainly Ryan Gosling, and there's a lot of quiet scenes, a lot of staring, a lot of brooding. It was really fun for me. My experience, I was sitting next to people that hated it and we're just like loudly like exhaling like during the slow scene and stuff, and I thought it was really funny. It was actually like increasing my enjoyment of the film, having people next to me that were just not into it, and I could tell they wanted to leave. I heard there were some people that were walking out of theaters just because it was some of the scenes they couldn't deal with how slow it was. It is a big ask to have people sit there for 3 hours through some of these scenes.
It's true, but I think that's the thing. It's for the people that want to be there and see the movie. It absolutely respects its audience. That's what I love about this movie. Like, you know what I mean? It may be more forward with its plot points, like Robert was saying, but like if you're the type of movie watcher that sit there and you don't necessarily need everything thrown in your face. There's enough subtlety there. You know what I mean?
Here's the problem. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I mean, everything in the film just, I don't know, it carries the vibe of the first one so much that it just, I don't know, it just hit all the right notes for me.
I can tell that Denis Villeneuve, or however you say his name, like cares a lot about this movie, and he wants it to be as faithful to the original as possible, and just a natural extension of that. However, it does the thing that I hate movies doing, where it's like shows a flashback and another reference, like remember this part, because there's a very complex story here, and you have to really pay attention to really get when those reveals happen. A lot of twists, a lot of turns. For the first third of the movie, I was thoroughly confused, and the film wants you to be confused. The film wants to slowly unravel the plot, and then really hit you at the end. But it did that thing where it's like, remember this, remember that, remember this. This is where it all plays into it. This is actually his daughter. This is actually the Messiah that's going to save all of android kind, etc. And it's just like, I hate when movies do that, because I feel like if a storyline is executed well, you will just know that. And if you're paying attention to the story, you'll just know. You won't have to be shown it again. However, this story was so complex, I give it a pass because you kind of needed it, because this, like I said, world was just so confusing or just so mysterious that I think it was necessary to have those reveals come back, because it's a 3-hour movie, and man, I loved Love, the villain, the female. Her name's Love. I loved her in it. She was a great villain. That scene where she grabbed the brandy glass in her hand. Do you remember that?
Crushed the police chief.
Gosh,
Yeah.
I was cringing, dude.
That part was, there was a lot of tension going on there, man. I really liked that scene a lot.
The sound of the glass crunching in her hand too was like, oh. And she kept squeezing it, and when she screamed, like I was genuinely very intimidated by her character.
Yeah, dude, that was crazy. And like, I don't know, there was just so many scenes in that movie that will probably just stick with me, dude.
There's a lot.
Like, yeah, there really is. Like, even the sex scene. The sex scene was the cool, one of the coolest things.
Well, it's not really. It's a love scene. It's not really a sex scene, but it's a love scene.
You know what I mean,
right? But it was. There's nothing like that in cinema,
dude. I've never nothing ever like that crossed my. That was so cool the way they did that, and it lasted a long time, long enough to make you uncomfortable, but they cut it off in a tasteful way to the point where they're like, okay, like you get the point. You know what I mean?
It is one of the strongest scenes in the entire film, in my opinion, and it's one of the greatest character. So much is communicated without being said, and some of it is said overtly, some of it is not. And there's a lot to unpack in that scene. I think that scene will be studied kind of in film school going forward. It's of that caliber, in my opinion.
Yeah, I love that scene. And to speak on favorite scenes, just once more, because I'm trying to keep going here. But the scenes in Wallace's chamber, like just the cinematography and the design going on there, where they had the floating platform above the water and stuff. I thought that was so cool.
Oh, I didn't even pick up on that.
Yeah, because it's like that platform, and then it's got like the stairs, and then it's very dimly lit, and they get the refractions and the reflections off the water, all the walls. Dude, just the way that whole scene was set up just was beautiful.
Yeah,
amazing.
I think that the concept of his character is very cool. That he's blind, but he has these cybernetic implants that Love sticks on his neck. And he can see through those.
That was cool. That was pretty
droids.
neat, yeah,
that's a cool concept. And he was really creepy, man. That scene where he gives birth to the woman android.
Oh yeah,
that scene
dude,
is
that was wicked
up with the scalpel.
Yeah,
whoo, I was like, dude, this guy is dark. And
I thought, dude, at that part, I was like, am I watching a Tool music video right now?
yeah. Serious, dude. Serious. Along with the love scene, I think another scene that's worth calling out for sure, and this is spoiler cast, so we're just going to talk about it, is the scene where Kay and Deckard are fighting with the Vegas kind of like performance going on the stage and cutting in and out of the lighting.
Harrison Ford actually got punched in that, Harrison Ford punched Ryan Gosling, actually physically punched him in that scene by accident.
I heard that. I hope it made it the final film. Some of those punches looked very convincing.
Yeah.
Like I was believing, I was like,
there's them Indiana Jones punches, man.
But I think upon second viewing of this film, I think people will find that the love scene and then that fight scene in Vegas were phenomenal.
See,
I really feel strongly about that.
What I find kind of funny is when I saw that fight scene in the Vegas style theater, I couldn't get the thought out of my mind, like, okay, is this Deckard getting tired of punching Kay, or is this Harrison Ford, the actor, getting tired of punching? Like, I could not get that thought out of my mind.
That's funny. No, you can't really un-Harrison Ford, him from what we've seen lately. But I'm telling you, he is great. I think he's great in this movie. I really think he gave a sincere effort. I was very surprised. I thought it was going to be, and we've joked about it on the show, I thought it was going to be a shit show like when he does Indiana Jones, which he's doing another Indiana Jones. I don't know if you guys know that. There's
crazy.
Another one. Sorry, Colin, but they did cut Shia LaBeouf out of that one. So his character's dead. Yeah, no more swinging on the vines with monkeys. But
and speaking of Harrison Ford, dude, I think my favorite scene with Harrison Ford in that movie might be the part after they defeat Love and he's like swimming back onto the bank.
Oh yeah.
And he's like looking for Ryan Gosling's. He's like Joe, and he's like freaking out, and they're like, and because he actually starts to show some sort of like sentimentality, I guess, like he's showing really letting him like breaking out of his shell a little bit with Kay, and just that part, and then of course before we get done with this, we have to talk about the ending. I thought the end. Yeah, and the scene, by the way, where you're first introduced, like, oh, this girl is the girl who actually fabricates all the memories for the replicants. I thought that was amazing. I thought that was the coolest idea.
Cool. Pretty cool. I mean, this movie's chock full of very cool ideas. You could argue almost too many ideas coexisting in one film.
Yeah.
That's why it's 3 hours long.
That's Philip K. Dick, man. He just throws a lot at you.
And he wrote this one too?
He didn't write this one, but there's the basis for it in Ed Android's Dream for Electra Sheep. But yeah, I thought the ending of this movie was perfect, in my opinion. Where Kay's laying on the stairs, and I'm pretty sure he dies, right?
He's dead.
And then Deckard meets his daughter.
What's to stop androids from being just uploading their consciousness into another thing? And then, just living on. What's to stop that? This is a pretty advanced world.
I don't know. I mean, there's no reason why there couldn't be, but there's no reason. I don't know if they know if that's a thing or not.
I think from a storytelling perspective, if that were the case, like, that'd make you not give a shit whenever an android dies.
Well, clearly,
right?
yeah.
It's like,
that's what I'm saying. Should we care? That's my argument.
Right.
Is there any weight to that? Because he's clearly an android. Now, let me ask you this real quick. The larger question of Blade Runner 1, this went over my head if it got completely revealed, but I came away from 2049 that Deckard is a human. Am I wrong?
Agreed.
Sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, I think, well, the thing that gets me is like, so replicants, at least from the Nexus 6 model and beyond, which is the models from the first film.
You nerd. Okay.
Yeah, I know. Because the ones in this film are the Nexus 8 models. So the difference is, they're all made of flesh, right? But the thing is, they leave it pretty ambiguous about how reproduction, or the reproductive organs work in replicants. I mean, obviously it's probably on purpose, but like, I feel like in this situation, Deckard would have to be a human to reproduce.
Right. So the thing is that humans and now androids can create new life now.
Because
and that's like the big reveal.
Yeah, because even if you think about it like from a science perspective, right? If you were to make an artificial human that could actually bear a human baby, like you would have to have somewhere to incubate, the egg and have that all the embryo and all that stuff, and yeah, so it makes total sense that Deckard would be a human in this instance to me. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. And you know what? It almost doesn't even matter anymore. Because it's not even part of the story anymore. We're at the end of talking about the plot, and this is kind of where I want to leave it with this. This is my final kind of thoughts on this. I'm not confident. So the first 2/3, first 3/4, whatever the film, I was on board. The ending of it, the whole build up to a giant android rebellion, that's where I was kind of like, oh no, I'm getting like tinges of the Matrix trilogy here, and not a good way. And I thought the ending, I thought it was really stupid to kill the Ryan Gosling character, because obviously they're trying to roll into a big giant finale third film. You got to have Ryan Gosling in that. You have to. He was one of the best parts of this whole film. And I'm surprised to say that. So I was not hype on where the direction is that they're going with this film. This movie is not supposed to be a big giant popcorn alien android rebellion war film off world or anything like that.
And that's probably why they cut it off where they did, though. At the same time,
I'm just worried about the future. I just don't know. I don't like the ending. Is not great for me. It just didn't work well for me, and I don't know. I don't feel good about the future, and that can kind of tie into more of the financial fallout of the film. I don't know if you guys are ready to transition there, but
I
talk about
I
it.
kind of want to leave my 2 cents on the film, if you guys don't mind.
Yeah. Please.
I'm curious to hear what you have to say, because real quick, I definitely want to hear what you're thinking. But we talked about it earlier this week. Like, you just recently saw the first one, didn't like it that much for valid reasons, and now you're kind of only seeing the second one because we do the show and because Colin and I want to watch it and you want to be able to talk about it. But I would argue that if Colin and I were not going to see it, you probably wouldn't have gone and seen it yourself.
Absolutely not. No.
Right. So I am curious, to your takeaways. For
So,
sure.
Again, like I said before, I think it's better than the first one. 2049 is better. Like, I think it's a funner film to watch. If you're going to choose one of the two to be a popcorn film, I'd say 2049 wins that challenge. Not that it is a popcorn film, but given the choice. But I think toward the end, I just kind of stopped giving a shit about the story, because it just felt like Jack mentioned, it's almost too complex. And I kind of agree that it's so complex that I'm like, I don't give a fuck now. I really don't. Like, when you asked,
just be over already.
Yeah, no, seriously, because when you asked earlier, is my takeaway was Deckard is human, and Colin was like, oh yeah, for sure. I'm kind of like, I don't fucking care if he's human, and I really don't.
No, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, why would you create the first film and leave so many hints that say is he a replicant? I don't know. And then create a second film to just say, fuck you with our twist.
They retcon a lot of it.
Yeah, it felt like they're doing twists on twists on twists. And I felt the same way about with Ryan Gosling's character, Kay. They spend 2/3, 3/4 of the movie being like, are you the miracle baby? Are you Deckard's son? Are you born from a Fuck, never mind. JK. No, it's not. JK. It's like...
By the way, real quick, just to interject there, when he finds out that his memories were real, not necessarily his memories, but the memories in his head were real, his reaction, that was awesome.
It was awesome.
That acting was that was like, wow. I really believed that man's entire world and meaning of life was turned on its head. I thought that was great.
Right, but
it was very simple dialogue, but great performance.
But what I hate is why would you give us that kind of performance and then next tell the audience it was a real memory, but it wasn't his real memory. It was this girl's real memory. It's like, I feel like that's a huge middle finger to like the audience, because it's like a buildup of all this time of like, you're invested in Kay. You see way more of Kay than you do the memory girl, who I don't even remember the name of, if I'm going to be honest. Like she's in like,
yeah, it's something simple.
Yeah, it's like, to me, that felt like a twist just for the sake of having a twist.
Right. Obfuscation for the sake of obfuscation.
Right, because like, if you wanted me to give a shit about it, tell me the story of this memory girl. Make the movie about, like, put her in the movie more. Otherwise, this feels pointless.
That's for the sequel. That's for the sequel.
Well, wait, hold on. So they tell you early on in the movie that there's a female.
Right.
Yeah, and so they kind of like,
but then they say it was a lie. So
Yeah,
that's the
yeah,
thing.
that's
They
like-
keep
like,
going. Chung, chung, chung,
Yeah, because
chung.
Deckard says
Yeah,
something
because-
like, I taught them how to scramble the records. And it's like, oh, okay, so it's like, they just messed it all up. So what even is true anymore, right?
Here, go ahead though. Finish, Colin.
I mean, there was also the blackout of 2022, which
what was that?
cleared all of the record. If you watch the short films, you would know.
Yeah, but
it
this
cleared
shouldn't be
all-
a film where it's like, if you knew what the short films
No,
were saying.
I hate.
Well, they mention
yeah.
it. They mention it in the movie itself.
Right.
They talk about it briefly, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying, as someone who's seen the first film, it just, I don't know. It just, again, another layer of complication.
Anyway, so like basically they didn't want their daughter to get found by, Wallace or whoever, by anybody, and then obviously that's why Harrison Ford, Deckard went into hiding, and then because he didn't want to know the daughter, and she was supposed to be kept off. So basically the purpose of Kay, the reason why his character exists, was basically just to throw off everyone else from their trail, because the thing is, they hid his daughter in plain sight right now, because she actually works for Wallace, and she's hidden in plain sight. And Wallace never found out, because they thought Kay was it the entire time. Kay was the red herring. They were supposed to go after Kay, and now he's dead. So now that they think he's dead, or they know he's dead, they think like the whole, okay, it's over. You know what I mean?
That's fine and all, but I'm not a fan of him being a red herring also for the audience. You know? Because
And I'm not sitting here totally to.
I mean, it's the
to hate on this
predictable.
film.
Yeah, but you're like, if you walk in there, I mean, it's kind of predictable, right? Like, I mean, I don't know. I guess it's up to a personal preference, but I mean, the idea that it was relatively predictable. Like, I was seeing all kinds of predictions, like, oh yeah, Kay's definitely going to be like Deckard's son. It has to be it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I kind of thought that too.
Yeah.
for
Right. That's
sure.
what I'm saying. Like, that's because
Or,
changing.
I
I
was
don't know. I
thinking
thought it was a cool
confused.
plot device. In my opinion,
I thought
but-
it was kind of confusing too, because for a good long part of the movie, I thought, is Deckard the baby that was born? That's where I was going with it. Yeah, and I thought that would have been. I thought that would have been interesting. So I was hoping for something like that.
Well,
but-
they kind of throw that out with the whole thing with like, oh, maybe Tyrell set you up with Rachel.
like,
Again, I
Beyond
don't know if
love,
I don't know if I appreciate like the way they retcon that whole thing. Like, oh well, we programmed her to fall in love with you just to make just all leading up to this one point. It's all been a big,
Conspiracy.
plan. Yeah, I don't. It just, to me, that diminished a little bit from the original film. I
thought it was
I
cool.
feel like we're hating
Call me
on this
simple,
film.
but
I feel like we're hating on this film, to which I will say definitively, I like this film. I want to watch it again. It's nice to
Same.
want things. To carve out 3 hours again for this is going to be hard. I legitimately could go watch this movie. Do you understand? I could watch this film again for free whenever I want to, because of Movie Pass. But it's like getting that 3 hours again, and the experience is a cool experience, but it's also a difficult experience too, to see a lot of these scenes in certain ways, that we've detailed earlier.
yeah.
It's just so long, It just didn't have to be this long, especially if they're already planning a third movie.
Oh, wait, is that
are they though? Are they planning a third movie?
Well, that's where the story's going. It's definitely a cliffhanger. It
Yeah, but
absolutely is a cliffhanger.
The thing is, they don't really need to make a sequel. They didn't really need to make a sequel in the first one.
They didn't need to make this one either. But
Right,
here's the
so-
thing. Let's transition to the business side, if you guys don't
Right,
mind. You
yeah.
guys Ready for that?
And this is a big reason why. This is a big reason why I don't think they're going to get a sequel is because of the financial reasons.
You wouldn't have been saying, but if it was making 150 million and made all this money back, then 1,000,000% there would be a sequel.
Then I would hope it was getting a sequel just because I enjoyed it so much. But I would be perfectly fine if they left it as is.
So this is a post-mortem because this film is dead on the vine. I'm very sad. I shouldn't be this surprised that it failed so miserably. But I am somewhat surprised. But when you really 2020 look back, the signs were all there. Okay, so the film opening weekend was grossed only 31.5 million, far below projections. The budget was 155 million. They're going to struggle to even break even with the international market. I think now it's as of Tuesday evening, they've done with the quasi holiday Columbus Day, right? They've reached 40 million. Which is still lower than they thought they would take in the 3-day weekend. And it also skewed, this is crazy, guys. It's for audiences, it skewed 71% male, okay? And 86% were above 25, and a whopping 63% of audience members were males over 35. Like, that's not supposed to happen anymore in this post-Marvel universe.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
This is women did not go to this film. No women wanted to see this. And you have to have women. And you have to have minorities, too. You're not going to have a giant successful film if there aren't any real minority roles of substance in this film. And I was somewhat surprised because, all the leads are and villains are Caucasian in this. Mm-hmm. All the main ones. There are some very tiny auxiliary parts given to minorities. So I don't know if that's like a commentary on the future or what, but it was noticeable. And audiences responded or failed to respond more accurately. So it calls into question, like, I don't know how they are going to justify a sequel to this. I don't see it happening, even though it needs to. I think there needs to be the ends here need to be tied. I would say
that's the thing.
What I would say, go ahead.
No, I was going to say this movie doesn't need a sequel though. I mean, it could have a sequel, but it doesn't need one. In my opinion, because
I'm not satisfied with this ending.
Well, the thing is, like the ending for the original, at least the final cut version, doesn't necessarily have a satisfactory, ending either. It ends with Rachel and Deckard running away. And
is it safe to say that after seeing this film now, the filmmakers and everyone involved were definitely initially intending a sequel? They're building it all up in a way the first movie was not built up.
Yeah, because they hint at the whole, like, we're going to create a rebellion and all that.
Well, yeah, but I don't know. What the way that it ends, I don't think it's not like a sequel bait type ending, I would say.
I disagree with that. I think it was totally like, this is the last moment and now boom, and you're supposed to be like, oh, but snap. The thing, that's kind of the reaction they're going for at the end.
Right.
So let me just say this real quick.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Let me just say this real quick. Okay, it only made 31.5 million, which sounds shocking to a lot of people. Okay, because you have Jared Leto, you have Harrison Ford, you have Denis Villeneuve, you have Ryan Gosling, right? Yeah. Well, if you look at their history, it's not a surprise at all. This is actually the largest debut for Denis Villeneuve and Ryan Gosling ever. They've never had a movie open, including La La Land and everything. They never had a movie open at this high. I think the highest was like around the 20s or 25 mil. So this is a peak for them in that respect. But again, if we go also to Jared Leto, this is like 2 huge strikes in a row for him. I mean, he sucked in Suicide Squad, in my opinion.
I forgot that was a thing.
Yeah, he sucked in Suicide Squad. He's not going to be. That's why they're talking about. Oh God, what's his name? I'm the king of the world.
Leo Caprio.
Why can I? Yeah, they're talking about him potentially being the new Joker. Jared Leto is not going to be able to hold his own film as a standalone Joker film. I don't want to see that, and I will not go to that. But he was not great in this film. I think again the concept was good. I just didn't like him in this one either, so that's 2 huge strikes in 2 huge blockbuster movies. I think it's definitely going to affect his stock going forward. That remains to be seen. But I'm just sad. because I wanted this movie to be huge. The numbers were very surprising. I thought the marketing behind this film was there.
It's a niche film.
It's just so self-indulgent.
It's a niche
it's
film.
going to be a cult classic.
Honestly, it's gonna have. Honestly, it could pull a Shawshank Redemption and be one of those movies that gets pretty big after it gets out to video.
It could be a cult classic,
Right.
but it's not going to be a Shawshank Redemption.
No.
But it will be a cult classic.
Yeah.
It could be.
Yeah.
Like the way I see
Only
it,
time will tell.
like Jack, you mentioned the marketing, and I have to agree. Like, if you'd seen a movie in the past like 3, 4, 5 months, you will have seen a trailer of Blade Runner 2049 at some point. Like they were throwing trailers out, a lot earlier, and a lot of the moments in it were kind of like those cool like action, like I want to see that. But I think a bigger part of marketing that people don't realize, you can't just throw a trailer at someone and then they'll be like, I'll watch that. It's usually like, you sit down at the bar with your friends or something and you're like, hey, I just saw the trailer for Blade Runner 2049. I'm kind of thinking about going to see it. And then the friend's like, oh, I mean, was the first movie any good? And then, they kind of like start talking about that. And like, you could end up like me, where I saw the first movie and I was like, meh. And like you two said earlier, no way I would have seen it unless you two were like, hey, let's talk about it.
Right. Did you guys know how long it was before you sat down and experienced the film?
You mean like...
Did you look at the timestamp and know that you were in for a 3-hour ride?
Yes. I knew. Yeah, we both knew.
Okay.
I did catch Robert checking his watch a couple times. So
yes.
Okay, I was checking my watch and I did not know the nature of the way I got my ticket and sat down. I literally just sat down like let's watch a great movie. Then all the people around me were starting getting annoyed and it was like and like we're starting to just their body language was totally changing and they were like making big sighs and big exhales and stuff. And so I didn't know it was 3 hours until I was like looking at my watch like, wow, this is a really long movie. This is really like just so indulgent. Again, it's it's something that I think film art students are going to eat up with a spoon.
Yeah.
But just for the general American public, it's just a huge ask to have them sit there for 3 hours again and devote their attention to this.
It's true. And you know what this is? I mean, it does. This movie could stand alone by itself, but it's a kind of. I feel like it would be a kind of a difficult watch if you didn't really know too much about what was going on before this movie. So it was riding pretty hard.
You have to see the first one before you see this one.
Oh yeah,
there's no way.
And
that's almost bad,
right?
Because they're 30 years apart, right? Like there's no way you will get much out of this film by just coming into this one without knowing who Rachel is, without knowing you wouldn't appreciate Harrison Ford, you wouldn't appreciate almost anything. It's required viewing. You have to see the first one to really get any kind of level of enjoyment out of this one.
I mean, I wouldn't go go as far as saying you need to see the first one to get any sort of enjoyment out of it. But
I kind of would
to get the enjoyment that's intended.
Well, to get the full brunt of what's going on, then yeah. It kind of makes me think too. It's like how did something like Lord of the Rings like manage to do so well at the box office? 'Cause, I mean, it's great. They're great movies, but man, they were like 3 hours long each. You know what I mean? At least
not the theatrical releases.
Oh no, yeah, they were.
They were. I would say Return of the King might have been. But the other ones were definitely 2.5
to 3 hours.
Theaters.
Yeah, I mean, but still, those are long movies.
They were long. I'm not saying they're short movies.
Yeah, I mean,
but there was a theatrical cuts and then there were extended cuts.
I mean, but those were like, I mean, I guess there's not near as much thematic stuff going on, and it's a little bit easier to follow. But it's like, I mean, you have to be like, there's a lot of prior knowledge there that it would help a lot if you had a lot of prior knowledge going into those movies too. Just saying.
Well, that's true. But like, did you when you first watched Lord of the Rings, were you like, man, I don't know what's happening though? Or when did you watch it and then were like, now I want to dig in. I want to know.
The most clear cut.
That's true.
It's
no,
the most clear cut storyline
that.
ever. These are the good guys. These are the bad guys. The Ring. Go.
Right.
No,
whereas
that's true.
With Blade Runner 2049, if I watched it for the first time and I actually liked it a lot, I'd be like, huh. I wonder what happened in like before. I heard there was like a film in the 80s or something, and I'd go back and watch it. Right?
Yeah, I mean, and then it's two different situations for sure because I mean, Lord of the Rings, each film was released one after another each year of release, right? So it wasn't like, they had that huge gap between movies either. So I mean, it's a completely different situation. You're right. I'm just thinking on like, it's very lore heavy. The Lord of the Rings movies is, I guess, was where I was coming from with that. Yeah. But yeah, I know, like it sucks that the movie didn't do as well as we wanted it to. It could have, but it really was setting itself up for failure from a lot of aspects. Even though it was a great movie, it was a movie that should have been made, and I commend Denis Villeneuve for making the movie that he did, because I personally enjoyed it a lot, and it is a proper sequel to Blade Runner. But it just wasn't capturing people like it, like it should have.
I have so many thoughts about this. This movie is the result of when budget and creative freedom are just allowed to run rampant. And this is an example of that going wrong. I mean, there are so many examples of when there are restrictions on creativity. When there are restrictions, that's when some of the best results happen in film, in all forms of art. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but again, when you just let a creative person with a lot of creative talent have an infinite budget and not really think about the business case for the film, this is kind of the result, and this is the case study in what happens there. So, my parting thoughts are that, man, okay, sci-fi and noir films together sound like such a perfect marriage, such a perfect peanut butter chocolate combination. And the first Blade Runner set the stage. This one definitely took over where that one left off. But there's never going to be another like sci-fi noir film that comes out that isn't compared to Blade Runner.
Oh, yeah,
and
100%.
That's somewhat unfortunate, because I would like to see other films. I'd like to see other creative directors take a stab at something like this.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, there has been.
Nothing that's not anime will ever be like, one thing that comes to mind is The Fifth Element. I think that's one that was heavily inspired by Blade Runner, but made a completely different film, a very successful film, in my opinion.
I do need to see that.
Yeah. So my parting thoughts are that I very much wanted to love this movie, and I think I love the movie. It's just it's like Blade Runner 1 in some bad ways. It kept a lot of the bad aspects of Blade Runner 1. It's not changed. Some of them are even exacerbated here. But it does a lot of great things, and it would be my wish and my desire that everyone sees this film. I just know that most people won't, and some people that will watch it are not going to finish it, and that's sad.
Yep. I don't know. I guess my concluding thoughts, I'll be the most negative of all of us, I guess. Look, it's a fun enough film, I guess, kind of. If you can stick around for 3 hours, it's a fun thing to look at. Like, visually, like Jack keeps saying, it's a
eye candy,
pleasing thing to look at. Even if you don't follow any of the plot, even if you don't care about any of the characters' names, just stare at it for 3 hours. It's a treat. But I can't help, I think by the time I got to the end of the movie, I was thinking, why didn't they just make Blade Runner 2022 a movie? Like, a movie about the blackout, Or why didn't they make Blade Runner 2060, where the rebellion is happening? I think there were, I wanted to see a movie about the Blade Runner universe, except for this. I think there's
that is negative.
I think there's so many other cool parts about the Blade Runner universe, and this movie has helped me kind of get into the universe. But at the end of the day, I'm I kind of don't give a shit about this. You could have told the story in an hour, probably. I think, especially if you took out all of the pointless twists and turns, and you could instead make a good summer blockbuster movie of 2022. If you haven't seen the short films that came out before, there's an anime version of what happens in 2022, and that was cool. That was dope. I was yeah, you go get them, androids. You caused that blackout.
I want to go watch that now. I agree with you though. I think there is a very excellent 2.5 hour cut of this film, maybe even 2 hour 15-minute cut of this film that could exist.
Yeah, I agree, honestly. Just there was so much fluff. Okay, we've been going on for a while about the spoiler cast. I think we should probably put a pin in it pretty soon. Colin, do you want to give your parting thoughts, and then we'll call it a day?
I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum. I'm full on fanboy for this entire franchise. I'm just gonna put it out there. I love everything about this movie. I loved every second, every minute. I don't care. Give me an extended cut when it comes out on Blu-ray. Please.
Oh my
no,
gosh.
absolutely
What?
not.
Dude, I
Dude,
can't follow
I don't
you down
care.
this path. So there's never been a Blade Runner that you haven't liked.
Listen. What do you mean? There's only 2. Anyway.
Yeah, and he's right.
Exactly. So, listen, God,
You're 0 for 2.
well, I think they made the right choice of plot with this movie. I don't think they should have made 2022 into a movie, because that's not what the original Blade Runner was. It wasn't an explosive espionage, like, fucking action flick. That's not what it was. 2049 was what it was because it was capturing the same, it was going along the same lines as the original. It was supposed to be a detective story. It's it's film noir with a sci-fi setting. So, and
You're crazy.
The fact that it carried through with a and the reason why it ends the way it ends is because it carried out the story of Kay. He performed his purpose. It's Kay's story, and it exemplified the themes that it was going for. The movie did what it needed to do within the time that it was allotted. It wasn't the film wasn't to lead up to this giant war. That's why there doesn't need to be a sequel. Would I be happy if there's a sequel? Yeah, and I would go and see it. But that's not the point. The point was to exemplify the themes that it was going for, and it did just that. That's why there doesn't need to be a sequel.
Okay. One of the coolest looking movies I've ever seen. One of the most atmospheric. When I think again about when they went to Vegas and when he's walking through the field or was walking through the desert and sees the statues and then a bee lands on his hand, and he sees that, like, just one of the coolest movies ever, one of the most atmospheric movies ever. But man, is it, like, so hard to sit through. That's all I'll say. But again, I'm positive on it. I'd like to think that I would.
I'm gonna buy it day
in
one
the future
for sure.
I don't know for sure. I'll have to see what the extras are. It would have to have a lot of extras for me to justify that. But I like the film. It would be difficult for me to go watch it again in theaters, even for free, and it would be difficult for me to go, like, bring friends to the movie. And I don't think anyone is. I think the drop off for this next weekend is going to be very, very humbling for the studio. This might also be the end of Alcon Entertainment. By the way, they were banking hard on this. They're literally banking the company on this making its money back. And if it doesn't, then they're out of business. So very unfortunate. I thought, I like the movie. There's a lot good there.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, call it my personal obsession. It's fine. I get it for sure.
Yeah, let's cut it here, because if we go on any more, I will keep hating the film. So,
Robert. Poor Robert.
Just
man.
think, only 2 more hours of podcast and we'll equal the movie.
Oh man,
we're basically equaling that right now with this recording.
Yep.
So,
All right, let's call it.
That's it for our Blade Runner 2049 post-mortem spoiler cast. Thanks for sticking around this long. I guess you're a very perseverant soul, because if you've listened to this, you probably saw Blade Runner and sat through that hell.
Oh my god. Oh.
So thank you for listening.
Strong words.
Very strong words. We'll see you next Thursday.
Sugoi!
Sugoi.